My name is Gustavo, and the rest of the group are Amy, Carrie, and Don. And we got together and wrote this beautiful presentation. Hope you guys like it. So first, a little bit of an introduction on how the cloud computing started, the origins, and how did the big thing started. So it started actually in the 60s. The concept came from Leonard Licklider, who wrote an article about everyone connected to the same network, sharing files, sharing computational resources, and he called this an intergalactic computer network, which is a little bit fancy for what we have today. And then John McCarthy, he was the first one to propose computation as a service, or like someone has a big server and he rent time of using that server, or some of the resources of that server to people, so to share the costs of computation. And then the term was first used by network designers since the 60s. Whenever they wanted to put the internet on a diagram, they would use this cloud diagram here. So that's where the cloud term came from. The remote access of computational functions started in the 60s in the big companies by the mainframes, where people would share the resource in these mainframes. People would develop their work by timeshare. So you would be allowed a certain time of during the day to use the resource of this mainframe. And most of them were private owned, which means that these mainframes were from the company, used by employees of the company. And so those were the first steps of cloud computing inside the big companies. In 1966, a Canadian engineer released this book, The Challenge of Computer Utility, where he proposed the computer service should be offered to the common citizen as a service, as utility, the same way as electricity is or water service is. Until the 90s, the main restriction that this technology faced was the restriction of the telecommunication lines. I don't know if you guys remember, but in the beginning we had the dial-up lines, which would be so slow to download one music would take you like 3 or 4 hours, which made this technology unusable then. But then in the 90s, with the higher demand of internet, the telecommunication companies started to use fiber optics, which are way faster and reliable than whatever they had before. So by the end of the 90s, some companies started to be founded, and they were called as application service providers. A lot of them failed because they didn't get the real concept of it, but then some of them succeeded, and later the type of service offered by them started to be referred as cloud computing. So here I have a little video of what is cloud computing.
Let's get started with cloud computing. First lesson, what is the cloud? The cloud is the computer network that holds all of your digital data, everything from contacts to documents to music. Cloud computing is like renting a furnished home. You don't have to worry about where you'll get the furniture and storage space for your stuff. In reality, cloud computing is the technical means through which everything can be delivered to you as a service via the internet, accessible from any device, any place, anytime. All you need to do is log on. Lesson 2. Why use cloud computing? Well, you're probably already using it. Every time you check Gmail, pull up iTunes, check Facebook, you're there. It's great for business too. The benefits? Flexibility. You can work from anywhere. Need bandwidth? You got it. Businesses save on costs when storing documents, using fewer servers and operating systems. The cloud does the heavy lifting. It's good for the environment. Businesses use 30% less energy and carbon emissions than with on-site servers. Lesson 3. How does cloud computing work? It starts when you log on to a web-based service where your stuff is stored. Through remote servers and network infrastructure, you can connect to other clouds like banks, schools, and businesses. Data and services are instantly available. Fast forward to the future. Everything you need is on the cloud. Businesses run from the cloud. Productivity has increased all around, but only if there are skilled individuals to develop and maintain cloud technology. We need to fill the gap, and that starts now.
The next section that we're going to talk about is the service modules. There's 3 service modules in cloud computing. They're infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Infrastructure as a service integrates basic services such as virtual servers, data storage, databases into one platform for installing and running your applications. And here are some examples. And the primary reasons why you can do this is for elasticity and virtualization. The next one is platform as a service, and this enables developers to build and install web applications on a hosted infrastructure. And it allows them to leverage the compute resources of the cloud infrastructure. And the last one is software as a service. And this allows you to explore how to provide network-based access to software and how it can make it faster and distribute faster and support less requirements and ease in upgrades.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of cloud computing. And the first advantage is the ability to access information anywhere at any time. The cloud offers the ability to quickly and easily access files from any internet connection. The huge benefit for businesses is the ability for multiple staff to have access, edit, share folders and files they are currently working on. This allows collaboration between the teams to streamline the work with less time uploading and emailing files individually for people to make corrections and then constantly email it back and forth. You can just go onto the cloud, fix it, and then the other person can see those edits immediately. The next advantage is the reduction in costs. Infrastructure maintenance for most IT-oriented companies consume 70% of the company's budget. With cloud computing, they can reduce those costs significantly. The company will not have to invest in servers and high-end machines, and reduced maintenance cost and reduce the number of storage devices they have to keep in-house. The third advantage is space saving. Cloud computing allows us to save, retrieve, work on files with others by accessing files through the internet. We have come a long way from the floppy disks that I used to use whenever I was in school. So it is designed to have little or no impact on the IT staff. In fact, one of the primary markets for the cloud storage is companies with no on-site IT staff. The provider can storage and manage your files from a different location. Some disadvantages with cloud computing is security issues. When implementing the cloud computing, companies need to trust who has access to their data. Their staff must be trustworthy enough to access data from secure remote connections. And most companies are afraid that their data on the computer system, that external companies have access to their information. And then a physical location is another disadvantage. The location of the cloud service for companies, many companies have security concerns about having their confidential and sensitive information being stored in other countries. An example is Asia and European companies are concerned with their information being housed in stores in the United States because the United States has laws that allows the government to have access to data easily. And variation of applications. Generally, the same computers are shared between different companies in the cloud, and this can cause some services to run slower than normally, and then people can't have access to their data immediately because there's too many people on the server at the same time. Glitches in the large system. Many other computer software applications, the cloud has experienced glitches that have caused applications to crash, this causing the inability to access your files. And the last one is misconception that the cloud has infinite resources. In fact, they have allocated a certain amount of resources that are able to share among other clients. If everyone tried to launch the certain cloud applications at the same time, the provider would run out of available resources, which would cause the application to crash.
And I've got cloud computing security issues. Carrie just touched on some, as that is one of the disadvantages to it. And she actually covered a couple things that's in this section as well. But we need to make sure that the ability of the security systems for cloud technology expands as the technology matures. Because there's always somebody out there, an unscrupulous company or just bad people in general that are out to exploit the weaknesses of any kind of technology that's developed for their own personal gain or gain of their companies. Individuals and organizations can minimize the risk, and a lot of these will look familiar because it's the same kind of things we need to do when we get on the internet, and it's just real, almost seems basic anymore. Passwords with capital and lowercase letters, numerals, and special characters make them harder for hackers to think of your birthday or your wife's name and that kind of stuff. And it's just really bad use for passwords. We all need to use antivirus software, apply security patches to our operating systems, and avoid clicking on infected links in emails. Everybody gets emails that they don't know who they came from. There's always links in there that you don't know where it came from. It's always a good idea not to click on that stuff unless you know where it came from. I was able to find 7 unique risks with cloud computing, and like I said, Carrie touched on some of these things. You need to know who your privileged user is going to be, because your administrators of your access provider, you need to make sure that they're good people and they have your best interest in mind in providing this service. You need to know who of their people are going to have access to your sensitive data. You need to make sure basically there's no crooks working for them. Regulatory compliance. What are the quality standards of the provider? How do they run their business? Are they certified by a third-party regulating body to make sure that they keep up to date with the latest regulations and controls in the field? Data location, Gary talked about this. Where is your data stored? What country or countries is it in? Are there any specific legal concerns for a particular location? And I think part of what Carrie was going on is the privacy laws in different countries are very, very different. And depending on what your business or application is, you may or may not want a particular kind of data stored in a particular country because of that law. Data segregation, the cloud is a shared environment, which Carrie touched on. Encryption should be used to provide security, and your provider should be able to provide evidence of effective encryption capabilities. Recovery, what happens in case of a disaster? We've had tsunamis, earthquakes, fires. We just had an explosion down in Texas this week. What happens to, is your data duplicated at multiple locations? What kind of restoration capabilities will your provider have? How can they get that data back for you if something happens? Investigative support, again with the legal ramifications. Investigations of illegal or inappropriate activity are difficult to support. Multiple customers may create privacy concerns, because if a provider is asked to hand over the data on a particular server, they may be putting in peril some other customer's data, because they're all served or kept on the same server, or could accidentally happen. It would be nice if it was all partitioned, and it may or may not be, depending on your provider. You need evidence of past ability and compliance to be able to support an investigation, just in case you need one, if somebody's done something illegal towards you, and it could help you in this case. And then the long-term viability of cloud of your provider. You need to make sure that a financial and organizational health of your provider is there, and they're going to be there long-term, and not have a disconnected phone next time you call them up trying to find out where your data is.
Very good. Thank you very much.